The moment their eyes met across the crowded restaurant, Marcus Blackwood felt as if someone had punched him in the chest. The girl couldn't have been more than 12, the same age his daughter would have been. Her worn clothes and hollow cheeks told a story he knew too well, one that transported him back 20 years to when he was that hungry child watching others eat. In that frozen second, past and present collided, and Marcus knew his life would never be the same again. If you've ever believed that a single moment can change everything, this story will confirm what your heart already knows. Before you continue watching, take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us of our shared humanity. Marcus Blackwood hadn't always been the man who could afford to eat at Bellini's on a Tuesday night. At 42, he had the tailored suit, the corner office, and the penthouse apartment that announced to the world he had made it. What most people didn't see was the emptiness that followed him home each night. The silence that echoed through rooms designed by an interior decorator who charged more for a consultation than Marcus's mother had made in a month when he was growing up. Tonight was supposed to be a celebration. The Henderson deal had finally closed after 18 months of negotiations, adding another 8 figures to the company's bottom line and a substantial bonus to Marcus's already impressive bank account. His assistant had made the reservation, and his business partners had insisted he go enjoy himself, even if it meant dining alone. The maitre d' had seated him at his usual table by the window, where Marcus could watch the city lights while pretending the solitude was a choice, rather than the result of working 80-hour weeks. He'd ordered his usual scotch, neat, and was reviewing the menu when the bell above the restaurant door chimed. The woman who entered was clearly out of place in the upscale establishment. Her coat was threadbare, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail that hadn't been styled in any particular way. But it was the girl beside her who caught Marcus's attention, thin, with intelligent eyes that seemed too old for her face, wearing clothes that had been washed so many times they'd lost their original color. The hostess approached them with a practiced smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Marcus couldn't hear the conversation, but he could read the body language. The woman's shoulders hunched slightly, her hand protectively on the girl's shoulder as she spoke quietly to the hostess. The girl stood perfectly still, her eyes moving around the restaurant with a mixture of wonder and wariness. Then the hostess's voice rose just enough for Marcus to catch fragments, minimum charge per person. And perhaps another establishment would be better suited. The woman nodded, her face flushing with embarrassment as she turned to leave. The girl's eyes swept the restaurant one last time, and that's when she saw Marcus watching them. For a heartbeat, their gazes locked, and Marcus felt a jolt of recognition so powerful it rooted him to his chair. In her eyes he saw himself at 12 years old, standing outside a restaurant window with his mother, watching families eat meals they could never afford. He remembered the gnawing hunger, not just for food but for normalcy, for the easy comfort those families seemed to take for granted. Before he could process what he was doing, Marcus was on his feet, crossing the restaurant floor with long strides. "Excuse me," he called, his voice causing several diners to look up from their meals. The woman turned, her hand tightening on her daughter's shoulder, wariness evident in her stance. "I couldn't help but overhear," Marcus said, suddenly aware of how imposing he must appear in his expensive suit. He softened his voice. "I have a table by the window. It's just me, and I'd welcome the company. Please, join me as my guests." The woman's eyes narrowed slightly. "We don't need charity," she said quietly, her dignity intact despite the flush of embarrassment still coloring her cheeks. "It's not charity," Marcus replied, surprising himself with how much he meant it. I just appreciate the company. It's been a long day." The girl tugged at her mother's sleeve. "Mom," she whispered, though loud enough for Marcus to hear, "it's my birthday. Please?" Something in the mother's face shifted, a battle between pride and the desire to give her daughter a special night. Finally, she nodded. "Thank you. That's very kind." As the hostess led them back to his table, Marcus caught the disapproving glances from some of the other diners. He found, to his surprise, that he didn't care. For the first time in years, he felt something crack open inside him, a door he'd closed long ago. "I'm Marcus," he said as they settled into their seats. "I'm Sarah," the woman replied, still cautious but polite. "And this is my daughter, Lily. It's her birthday, Marcus said with a smile. How old are you today, Lily? 12, she answered, her eyes bright with excitement as she looked around the elegant restaurant. 12. The number hit Marcus like a physical blow. His daughter Emma would have been 12 this year too, if she had lived. The thought came unbidden, as it always did on her birthday and on random days when he saw children, who reminded him of what he had lost. Well then, he said, pushing past the familiar ache, we should make this a proper celebration. What began as an impulsive act of kindness evolved into one of the most genuine evenings Marcus had experienced in years. Sarah gradually relaxed as dinner progressed, revealing herself to be intelligent and witty. She worked 2 jobs, he learned, administrative assistant by day and online customer service representative by night, while taking classes toward a degree in social work. Lily was in 7th grade, loved science and art, and dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. Animals don't judge you by what you wear or where you live, she explained with a wisdom beyond her years. They just care if you're kind to them. As they shared dessert, a chocolate cake the chef had decorated with a candle for Lily's birthday, Marcus found himself telling them about his own childhood, about his mother who had worked cleaning houses and taking in laundry to keep food on the table after his father left, about the scholarship that had been his ticket out of poverty, and the relentless drive that had propelled him to success. What he didn't tell them was about Emma and her mother, Claire, about the car accident 6 years ago that had taken them both, leaving him with nothing but wealth and an emptiness no amount of money could fill. He didn't mention how he had thrown himself into work afterward, building his company into an empire while letting everything else in his life wither away. When the evening ended, Marcus insisted on calling them a car service. It's late, he said when Sarah began to protest. Please, let me do this. Standing on the sidewalk waiting for the car, Lily looked up at him with those old soul eyes. Thank you for making my birthday special, Mr. Marcus. You're very welcome, Lily, he replied, surprised by the thickness in his throat. It was my pleasure. Sarah held out her hand. Thank you. This meant a lot to her. To both of us. Marcus took her hand, struck by how long it had been since he'd had physical contact with another person that wasn't a business handshake. Would it be all right if I called you sometime? Maybe we could do this again? The question surprised him as much as it seemed to surprise Sarah. She studied his face for a moment, then nodded slowly. I think we'd like that. After they drove away, Marcus stood on the sidewalk for a long time, watching the taillights disappear into the night traffic. Something had shifted inside him, a tectonic movement of the soul. For the first time since losing Emma and Claire, he felt a spark of something he had thought was gone forever, hope. The next morning, Marcus called his assistant and cleared his schedule for the day. Then he made another call to his lawyer. By afternoon, he had the paperwork in hand for a new foundation, one dedicated to providing educational opportunities and support for single parents and their children. Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself spending more and more time with Sarah and Lily. He helped Lily with her science project, a complex model of the solar system that won first prize at her school fair. He attended her soccer games, cheering from the sidelines alongside Sarah, and slowly the frozen parts of his heart began to thaw. 3 months after that chance meeting at Bellini's, Marcus invited Sarah to dinner, just the two of them this time. Over candlelight, he finally told her about Emma and Claire, about the grief that had nearly consumed him, and about how meeting her and Lily had awakened something he thought was dead. I've been existing, not living, he confessed. Building wealth because it was the only thing that made sense when everything else was gone. But that night in the restaurant, seeing you and Lily, it reminded me that there's more to life than just surviving. Sarah reached across the table and took his hand. We've all been just surviving in our own ways, she said softly. Maybe it's time to start living again. 6 months later, Marcus sold his penthouse apartment and bought a house in the suburbs with a backyard where Lily could have the dog she'd always wanted. A year after that first meeting, he and Sarah were married in a simple ceremony with Lily as the maid of honor. The foundation Marcus started grew beyond his initial vision, providing not just educational support but also housing assistance, healthcare access, and job training for families in need. He stepped back from the day-to-day operations of his company to focus on the foundation, working alongside Sarah, whose degree in social work proved invaluable to their mission. 5 years after that frozen moment in the restaurant, Marcus stood in the backyard of their home, watching as Lily, now 17 and preparing for college, played with her younger brother, a 2-year-old tornado of energy named James. Sarah came to stand beside him, slipping her arm around his waist. "Penny for your thoughts," she said, leaning her head against his shoulder. Marcus smiled, covering her hand with his. "I was just thinking about how different my life would be if I hadn't looked up at exactly the right moment that night. If I hadn't seen you and Lily." "Do you believe in fate?" Sarah asked. Marcus watched as Lily scooped up her little brother, both of them laughing as she spun him around. "I don't know about fate," he said thoughtfully, "but I believe in moments that change everything. And I believe that sometimes when we're broken, the universe finds a way to put us back together, often through the people we least expect." That night in the restaurant had been just one moment. A man looking up from his menu, a girl glancing back as she was about to leave. But in that frozen second of recognition, 2 broken paths had converged, creating a new road forward for all of them. Marcus Blackwood had once been defined by what he had lost. Now, he was defined by what he had found: a family, a purpose, and the understanding that true wealth had nothing to do with money and everything to do with love. Sometimes, it takes just one moment to change everything. One glance, one decision, one act of kindness that ripples outward, transforming not just a single life but countless others. For Marcus, Sarah, and Lily, that moment in a restaurant was just the beginning of a story that continued to unfold, reminding all who knew them that it's never too late to start again, to heal, to find joy in the most unexpected places. And perhaps that's the most important lesson of all, that even in our most broken moments, hope is never truly lost. It's just waiting for us to look up and see it standing right in front of us.